I don't actually think that the only way to solve business problems through people is by replacing them. I do believe that you can solve business problems through people by giving people coaching and by giving them access to incredible learning opportunities. I believe you can solve business problems through people by giving people clearer goals and by giving them more market level compensation and all of the different things that I didn't really have access to as a executive search consultant. I did have access to all of those tools when I went in-house. And so that was the thing for me, was I really did want that statement to be true. I really did want to solve business problems through people, but I needed all of the levers to be able to do that.
Here's the uncomfortable truth about AI. The gap isn't between companies, it's between leaders. Same tools, same access, same hype, but completely different outcomes. Why? Because AI exposes how you think. Your decision making, if it's unclear, AI will expose it. If your system is strong, AI compounds it. Across the executives I've worked with, from Slack to HSBC to American Airlines, the ones who win don't use more AI. They use it deliberately. They build a personal system, capture their thinking, pressure test their decisions, turn every interaction into a reusable asset. We call it the CSTA loop in action. And the results, they're pretty consistent. 3 to 4x more meaningful decisions, up to 60% less preparation time, and faster alignment across their teams. This isn't about becoming an AI expert, it's about becoming a better decision maker. All captured in our book, Artificial Organizations, out now.
Enjoying the podcast? Don't forget to subscribe and follow us on YouTube. This way, you won't miss any episode, and it greatly supports our podcast.
Melanie Steinbach has operated at the highest levels of global business, serving as Chief HR Officer at companies such as McDonald's, Cameo, and MasterClass, where the challenge isn't just strategy, it's execution at scale. She's led transformation inside some of the most recognizable brands in the world, working at the intersection of growth, culture, and performance. I've had the pleasure to work with her when she was at McDonald's, and instantly it stood out to me how she approached HR and people development differently. Through all of that, she's built a reputation for solving problems that actually matter, the ones that sit beneath the surface and the org chart. Because of Melanie, business problems are never operational, they're human. They show up how people make decisions, how they align teams, and whether organizations can adapt fast enough as the ground moves beneath them. What's interesting is how her perspective holds up in the new world as it's being reshaped by artificial intelligence. The tools are getting more powerful, faster, more companies can absorb them. But Melanie's view is clear. Technology doesn't solve the problem. It amplifies whatever system, culture, and leadership already exists. Which means the human side of the equation hasn't gone away. If anything, it's become more critical. In this conversation, we unpack what it really takes to drive change inside complex organizations today, how to solve business problems through people, how AI is changing the game where it isn't, and what leaders need to unlearn if they want to stay relevant. If you're navigating transformation, leading at scale, and trying to make sense of what AI actually fits into the organization, or more importantly, how it's going to impact your people, this is the show for you.
I started my career in executive search. I loved it so much. The reason I loved it was that we got to speak to so many different leaders of so many different sizes of companies and maturity levels. And, I mainly focused in consumer and retail, but, that is a vast industry description. And so lots of different startups and very seasoned companies, turnarounds. And when people used to say, yeah, but what do you actually do in executive search? I would say, I solve business problems through people. But I was saying that one time, and I heard, not that I hear voices, but there was this little voice in my head that said, well, not really. You solve business problems through people replacement. And is that what you believe? And in my mind, it was like a switch went off. No, I don't actually think that the only way to solve business problems through people is by replacing them. I do believe that you can solve business problems through people by giving people coaching and by giving them access to incredible learning opportunities, which is like how we met. I believe you can solve business problems through people by giving people clear goals and by giving them like more market level compensation and all of the different things that I didn't really have access to as a executive search consultant. I did have access to all of those tools when I went in-house. And so I think that was the thing for me was I really did want that statement to be true. I really did want to solve business problems through people, but I needed all of the levers to be able to do that.
First of all, I love that you just share that straight out, to start, because for many people, they probably wonder, like, what are those levers? Which ones matter to me? Where should I be focused? Because I think too many people, especially when they're inside a company, the way they, measure their progress is either by some sort of change of title or sort of, I went from junior to senior or senior to, or what goes home in the pay packet. But, instantly, those were the last things you mentioned. The first things you mentioned were these ideas of growth opportunities, coaching, development, this idea of ultimately people growing, which is the first place you went to, which again is awesome. So tell me why you instantly, if you will, your reflex goes to these ideas of creating learning opportunities or opportunities to grow and coach people. Why did you answer that first?
I'm fascinated by humans in general. All humans. I love learning people's stories and finding out their motivations. And after spending so many years studying humans in the workplace primarily, I really have come to the belief that people want to do a good job at work. I really do think that people want to do a good job. And I think that when they're not doing a good job, I always say, well, it's HR's job to figure out like what's getting in the way of them doing a good job. And to me, so often it is they didn't have all of the skills to do the job that we were asking them to, or they didn't know that that was part of the job requirement because we didn't really make that very clear, or we thought we hired them in one position, we promoted them maybe to a different one, but we didn't actually say, hey, listen, in this new role, we need you to operate slightly differently. And so I always feel like people want to do a good job, and often the thing that is getting in the way of them doing a good job is it's a growth opportunity for them. They either don't know, and this is something I always say, if they don't know, they can't grow.
Yes, absolutely.
How do you expect someone to do better at something when you haven't told them that they're not doing a sufficient job at it? Or how do you expect them to just intuit that there's a new way of operating in a more senior level? You need to tell them. And so it comes from that belief that people want to do a good job at work.
Yeah, well, instantly as you were talking, two things came into my head. Clarity, which you mentioned, and expectation. And both of those things being lined up is massive. I remember I joined one company called ThoughtWorks. It was the most amazing experience ever. There was no managers. By design, the founder was like, we're having no managers in this company. I remember showing up.
Holacracy, I think they call that holacracy.
Right, and he was like, no managers, you're in here, you're contributing. And I on my first day, I was sort of like, how do I take a holiday? And people are like, oh, you just tell your team. I'm like, oh, okay, that sounds a bit weird. But by design, he had sort of created this, as you're describing, a system that I had never been in before. Like the guardrails were sorted there, but they were not clear. The expectations were sorted there, but you had to go and find them out yourself. And what I saw over the years that I spent there is some people thrived in that environment because they were okay with that ambiguity. Many people really struggled and needed help and clarity and expectation to get them to feel comfortable to do their best work. And to me, it was this odd conflict that I used to feel, where I could see for some people who were just, oh, that suits my style,
Yeah.
I can go off and make things make sense from day one. From other people, it was one of the most awkward, uncomfortable situations they'd ever been in, and it didn't feel right. So this idea that you're describing of a growth opportunity for people, like, I thought that was the most important thing we could do as a company, is that we could explain that the system was almost like, this is unlike any system you've been in before.
Right.
This is how you can succeed. Here's the expectations of you. And at times we were great at it, and at other times we were not great at it. And it was just one of those places where I really noticed it. The longer I was there, the more I could sort of see it, the struggle in people. So
Yeah.
for folks who maybe aren't in such a situation, maybe as extreme as that, but it still happens in companies. So how do you help them recognize that? Because most people then feel as a failure on themselves, that there's something wrong with me because I'm used to performing, and I'm suddenly in a situation where I'm not performing.
Yeah.
And it brings a lot of challenge to identity. It's ultimately what I saw. And
Oh,
that felt wrong too. So
totally.
how do you help people recognize that and then know to ask for this help rather than beating themselves up?
I think in every company it's a little bit different, but what you're describing to me is something that I have seen in several companies where um, information and expectations require a treasure hunt rather
Yeah,
than,
that's such a good
a
way to
map. It's
describe it.
like, it's like, oh, well, you go find it. It's like we've just wrapped up Easter, and
Yeah.
like that it's like an Easter egg hunt, like best of luck going to find it, which that's fun for a game. It's not a very efficient or welcoming approach to giving people information and
Yeah, I
expectation.
agree. Absolutely agree. Yeah.
And like that company that you're describing, and holacracy is like a whole very interesting management approach for all HR people. They think holacracy is very interesting. Zappos was kind of the poster child for holacracy. But I think to me, those structures require so much clarity. I'm so fascinated now to learn more about this company that you're in, Barry, because to me, like if you are going to set up a company without managers, you owe it to your employees to give them clarity on expectations. Like you should make information abundantly available. You should make expectations massively clear, because if you think about it, managers, like the role of traditional managers has been to give you information that you need and to clarify the expectations. And so in a company without those, I would say like those, to me, it feels like a real miss on their part not to make that like standard operating procedure. Like that should have been codified in the onboarding. Like here's where you go to find out everything. And my guess is now with AI, like hopefully that company, I don't know if they're still around, but any other company that's exploring holacracy, with the abundance of information available through AI, they should be able to do a slightly better job at that. But those were my initial reactions as you were talking.
Yeah.
I will just say, like, this idea of I'm an employee, I don't have the information I need, I'm not quite sure what my expectations are. I think that is where company culture is so, so critical. Because in some cultures, they really prize knowing. And so in those cultures, it's going to be very intimidating for that employee to ask. There are other cultures that really prize learning. And in those cultures, asking for the information is actually a sign that you are fitting into the culture and that you are doing, you are living the value of curiosity. And so in those cultures, that questioning would be heralded. And I would say to anyone who is contemplating a job move or thinking about this or experiencing this themselves, like my advice is always be a learner. Being a learner is always going to be so much more productive than being a knower. particularly in the era that we're entering or are in currently.
Yeah, no, great advice. And honestly, that's literally what I discovered too as well, is the people that succeeded were the ones who kept the curiosity going. Again, not that I think it was set up to allow that happen, but it was an interesting, as you say, sort of effect.
Yeah.
But you've brought up a really another interesting point, right? So there's two things I really want to talk about now you've said it. One is this aspect of now as we go into this AI era, where this abundance of information, again, there's still a problem with getting the information to the right person.
Yeah.
That is a fascinating debate. And then obviously recently we've had this idea of the founder of formerly Twitter, Block, Jack Dorsey, published this, somewhat provocateur type post around like what the future of organizations looks like when information is moving around, right? So I really want to ask you questions around these things. So the first one about the abundance of information, and this is actually one of the case studies that's in artificial organizations. It's with Cass Pratt, who's the HR officer for Progeny. And like one of the things she started to do, which I thought was fascinating, is they started to use automations or bots or conversational content. So when new people joined the company, teams could start to ask questions, right? And the curiosity was driven around a back and forth, with ultimately a machine that was sucking up all the corporate information and trying to answer these sort of like 101 level questions, like how do I book a holiday? Like the question I wanted to ask on my first day.
By the way, I would just tell people, like, in days of yore, asking for a holiday on day one was probably like not the move, but maybe times have changed, I guess.
Oh, that was the ultimate tell about me. They're like, why is this guy asking for a holiday when he walked in the door? And then, but the interesting part was, like they were able to solve these very sort of like the 101 level questions, right? So people could feel that they were learning. The questions then that they ended up with going to HR were sort of like second, third order level questions, right? Stuff that was removed a lot of the capacity on top of HR, where they could solve, as you described, like business problems through people, right? Like moving in that direction. Again, fascinating, the approach there. So I'd just love to hear your take on, as someone who has been leading these massive organizations, right, where we're talking like tens of thousands of people.
Yeah.
Right? Like do you see some of those opportunities to leverage information to help get the most out of everybody? So the learner, if we call them that, is feeling empowered, they're feeling educated, they're feeling comfortable because they're in a expectations world, that they can start to see that through the information they can access. And then as a leader, setting up the systems to allow that to happen. So what were some of the things that struck you as you started experimenting in this space?
So a couple of things there. I think what you've described as what Progeny is doing is absolutely what I saw us moving to at MasterClass, which is where I was when AI was really coming online. But it also made me think about some of my experiences at McDonald's where, I think, first of all, you have to clarify your approach to information. Like at McDonald's, we said, right, we are onboarding all of these people. What's our philosophy on onboarding? Like, do we have one? No.
Yeah,
Let's
nice.
create one. What is it? And it was very simple. What you need to know, when you need to know it, in a warm and welcoming way. Now, that's wonderful. But what you need to know and when you need to know it, we were basically doing our best guesses at that.
Yes.
Right? We were we were saying, okay, well, a new employee in, the supply chain organization at a manager level needs to know this. They don't need to know all of that in their first week. We can spread that out over like the first 30 days or whatever. Fast forward to AI. AI can do all of that for them automatically, right? What you need to know, right? AI can serve up, here are a few things, right? Day one, you need to know HR policies, super duper. You need to know how to log into your computer, very tactical. Right? Day 2 through 30, then AI can start to layer in more of what you need to know. When you need to know it, now the new employee can start to solicit that in a very personalized way. Hey, I happen to have a meeting with my boss's boss 8 days into my tenure. What do I need to know for that, right? And so then it becomes so much more dynamic and personalized. I think that's amazing. The idea of in a warm and welcoming way then frees up the manager, the HR partner, whatever, to really make sure, hey, how's that going? Are you getting the support you need? Like, what other context can I give you? And that really moves on to my next point, which is, I've always really said leadership, like the keys to leadership are three things. This is like, in the past, I would say it's three things. Number one, knowledge transfer. Number two, remove barriers to getting work done. And number three, uplifting personal and professional growth for your employee. I would say those three things. Today, I think knowledge transfer has become more around knowledge context, knowledge nuance.
Right on.
Right?
Yeah.
So now they can get all of that information, but what else do I need to know before I go meet my boss's boss on day 8? Okay, now I have their bio, now I know what their org structure looks like, but who's going to tell me that they're going to get really mad if I come in with a drink in my hand? Or who's going to tell me, listen, this person is like a rabid note taker, don't get offended if they're looking at their computer their whole time. Although maybe they should get an AI note taker like Barry. But I think those are the things that we can help. It frees up our capacity to do. So first thing is be clear on what the purpose of the information transfer is. And then the second thing I would say is really think about your role evolving from just knowledge transfer to knowledge context, knowledge nuance.
Yeah, look, the knowledge context thing just resonates massively, right? Because I think that is the moment we're in now where if you can be in a place as a leader where you're actually uploading context almost in real time, that is just such a massive differentiator. And, one of the things certainly is you were joking about my note taker, right? That is what it has created for me. By turning every meeting or moment I'm in into a data asset, by having essentially a co-pilot that's capturing every conversation, turning it to data, I can upload context. It's almost like a version of the Matrix. I know I'm meeting Mel next or Melanie next. The last thing we talked about were these people development plans for these 3 people. Yeah. And, person C needs some real extra help on X, Y, and Z. So it's almost like that 5 minutes before I prepare to go and meet with you, I can just go back and upload that context into the sort of front of my mind. So then when we meet, I feel prepared, I feel calm, and I'm ready for what could be a high stakes conversation. Maybe we're doing a personal development plan for someone, or we need to exit them, or, and for me, that is presence. It goes beyond productivity and performance. It goes to executive presence, where you're able to show up for high stakes pressure moments with this context that is somewhere in your mind, but you have a support system that brings it to the fore. Yeah. So that is it for me, again, allows us to have a much richer conversation, a more pointed conversation if necessary, and ultimately get to better decisions faster, right? So we might have booked an hour, but because we have this context loaded up, we can dive straight into the sort of the nitty gritty of these problems and get to a decision we're both comfortable with. That might take 59 minutes, it might take 29 minutes. Yeah. But then we get to a decision, right? And for me, I think that's so important, rather than trying to recreate context all the time, which takes half of these meetings. And then we get into the nitty gritty of the problem solving aspect of it. And oh, sorry, I've got to go to my next meeting.
Yeah, yeah,
Let's
yeah,
talk
yeah.
about it next week,
Well, and
And
also while we're in that meeting, I am also running through the 15 other things that I had to make sure that I capture from the meeting before and the 10 things that I'm needing to like remember for the meeting that I'm in next. And I think like when I read the book and that idea of presence to me was actually like being present, like letting my whole brain be in this screen, not in the 17 other tabs that are open in my head or on my computer, but like, how do I be like in this screen with you right now? Be in that meeting just there and like our brains, when we are fully present, are pretty spectacular. It's
right
just
on.
we
Yeah.
like we're fragmenting them so often. And I appreciated in the book that you gave that you honored that fragmentation that so many leaders feel, right? Like they want to do, again, I really do believe people want to do a good job at work. Like, I don't believe that CEOs want to slow down every important decision. I don't believe that CFOs want to say no to every spend. I believe they are like being asked a bazillion different things at any given point. And so, like, they have to catch up to whatever it is the decision that's like top of your list. It might be 28 on their list, and so like you got to catch them up. And I think some of the tools that we now have access to are going to really help with that.
Well, this is I think a great then to ask you, like, you are right in this, right? You've been in these amazing companies of massive scale to rapid growth to, you've seen all the shapes and sizes of these things. And now we have these new technologies literally entering the workplace, which again, I feel is all about a behavior change in people, right? Like the tools are not the magic thing. It's
Yeah.
how people change how they work or how they behave with the support that these tools can offer them. So what are you seeing maybe an industry that we might need to look differently at for solving business problems with people? Like, what does that look like now?
Well, first of all, I still do believe that people have a role to play in solving business problems. I think like that's really important to me. I have spent my life, as I said, studying people in companies. And I know that it's like employees of a company really see themselves as it's more than a paycheck. Yes, it is a paycheck. In the US, where I'm talking to you from, it also means health care for you and your family. It is like it gives you meaning and it gives you connection to other adults, right? And so humans working is really important to me. And so I think my first thing is with all of this happening, the one thing I hope we don't unlearn is that people are still part of solving business problems.
Absolutely. Yeah.
And I think you agree with me on that wholeheartedly.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely. Well, there's
yeah,
very intentionally, the subtext of the book is human and machine intelligence.
yeah,
Because again, my core belief is that the one thing the machines cannot do that humans are amazing at is judgment. That is the humans need to make the decisions. The machine can give you all the information that you could dream of to help make that decision, but your job, as far as I'm concerned, especially as a senior leader, that's what you're paid to do, is to make
yeah,
high stake decisions under pressure, and the machine can give you the information to help you.
yeah.
So that's my belief.
I love
Humans can
that. By
do.
the way, that idea, judgment infrastructure that you talk so eloquently about, I think is really critical for people to have a conversation around, right? So, to the same point that I made around onboarding when I was at McDonald's, do we have a philosophy on this? No, let's make one. Okay, judgment infrastructure. Do we have a philosophy on it? No, let's develop one because I do think it's going to be important. I think, though, you know, my belief on all of this is that this technology, more than pretty much anyone in my working lifetime, requires so much behavior change. I really do think that this is like a seismic behavior change at the individual, at the company, and at the, societal level. And part of what I am really like starting to think through with companies is, what does valued work look like here? And that is the thing I think we have to start having more discussions around, because in the past, valued work was that I knew how to actually like do the thing. I was a financial analyst. I knew how to do the calculations, or I knew like all of the whiz bang formulas on Excel. Like I knew how to do the thing, and that was the valued work.
Yeah.
And I would get to demonstrate all my valued work of doing the thing in a meeting. And so like meetings became like the artifact, if you will, of valued work, right? I mean, there is no one that has ever said to me, I'm crazy busy, and said it as like a bad thing. They were saying it as like a badge of honor, like I'm crazy.
Of course.
Like, look at me, I'm a baller. And I don't think that's going to be the case going forward. Like, I think meetings as the measure of value of work is going to go away, because to your point, we're going to come to meetings with so much more context. Like, we're not going to need the 1 hour meeting. Like, we're going to have a 15-minute meeting to decide something really important, because we're all going to have all of this information and context. And so I think the conversation we need to have is, if it's not that, then what is it? Because I worry that people are going to say, oh, but all of these employees, these human employees, have all this time on their hands now, right? They're not in meetings anymore. And so do we need them? And that is because we have used being in a meeting as a measure of the value of your work, right? I do the thing, I present it in a meeting. The meeting is the place where all of the value happens. If that goes away, then where is the value? And that is like, it's a little bit out there maybe, I don't know. But it is like, for me, I think it's like a really important discussion that needs to happen.
Yeah, no, I think it's an imperative one. And, I think there's a few people out there that have seen it and are trying to start these conversations, because I agree that the measure of sort of value, as you're describing it, has always been, let me tell you how busy I am. Let me tell you how much work I'm getting done. Right? I think it comes from a performance culture or incentives that are about you demonstrating the creative output you have as one individual as a way to rise up and be recognized in your company. It's rife across Silicon Valley. Like all my time there, all my friends who worked in the big tech companies, the way they're measured is how much impact have you had. Demonstrate the impact you've had on the company, which all plays to people, sharing, I created all this stuff. I created all this software. I created all these. And you even see it now in most people's social media feeds, or everyone is just trying to show how much they are doing. I have 27 agents that run in the background and solve every question. But again, all these people are just talking about activity. It's the new productivity flex, where, as you were describing, I'm the Excel wizard. Let me just solve that right now in front of everybody in the meeting. Now it's this productivity flex of, I have 7,000 agents solving every problem. But no one talks about the outcome. This is always the tell for me. Like, no one talks about, are they making better decisions?
Yeah.
Are their team members saying, you're a better person to work with? I want to work with you because we make more progress, right? It's all activity sort of output based, which again is exactly what AI is great at. Like, it's great at creating output, but is the quality any good?
Totally.
And this is sort of, for me, a bit of the tell right now, is that it's very easy to wow people with I'm really busy, or I'm creating a lot of output, because I'm obviously highly effective. But the tell is always, for me, are they talking about outcome? Are they talking about better decisions being made, less reversals, team members have higher, an NPS of working with you, like, is it actually getting better? And that's
Right.
why I always talk about decision velocity, decision advantage, and reversal rates, because velocity is obviously making better decisions sooner. Great. We've talked about that. Decision advantages, do they have the information? But the tell is always the reversal rate, because
Yeah.
if you're making a decision and then you have to go back on it a week later, a month later, that shows that maybe you're not making the right decision in the moment, right? And that is really, really important now, because information is abundant.
Right.
Output is free,
I really wish you could see my notes here, but I won't make you read them from far away. But I did say, like, as I was reading the book, we need to unlearn meetings equal value and learn high quality decisions equal value.
Right on.
And that is like, I really do believe that that is, and I think we have to, like, to our earlier point around like clarity of expectations, I think we have to be very clear on what is a high quality decision here. A high quality decision here means that it is made in this amount of time with this like robustness of data, and that the reversal rate is, zero, whatever, at this point, and after 6 months, and the outcome of it is what we expected it to be, right? Like, being very clear on those things, to me, I think could really make people like calm down a little bit on what this is all meaning. Because I talk to a lot of employees in companies who are saying to me, meetings are how I'm valued. Like, because I'm in meetings all the time, I know I'm valued here and I'm
Yes.
safe, right? And if
Yeah.
I'm not in meetings, and if a bot is doing the, Excel wizardry that I used to do, how will they know that I'm valued? How will I know that I'm valued? How will I know that I'm valuable to the company? And I think that those are the conversations we have to start being really, really clear around.
Yeah.
Um,
No, and one of the case studies that really, like, I was delighted came out just as the book was being published, was by the Byrne Institute, and they studied, I think, like 770 job roles since ChatGPT came out, and because there is this narrative, like, people are going away, you're being replaced, you're being,
yeah,
and it's not a case that AI is sorting into jobs that are safe and jobs that are unsafe. It's, as you said, it's redesigning how work is done.
yeah,
So, interestingly, knowledge workers are the people that are most, if you will, exposed about automation impacting their work. But at the same hand, they're also the people who can benefit the most, because their work is shifting. As you described, the financial analyst, their job now is not to build the spreadsheet, it's to interpret the data that the spreadsheet has been built around. For, again, that's human judgment.
yeah,
That is the project manager is not less valuable because they're able to go around and collect all the tasks and put them into the issue management. Their value is actually managing the project now.
right,
So I think we do need to really reframe this, that what's happening is that the creative problem solving work used to be 20%, and you had this 80% of admin. But now we can, like, move the needle a bit more to,
yeah,
like, admin does not go away. Maybe you get to like 60-40. Maybe you get to 50-50 of creative problem solving and admin work. But this is where people can bring their best abilities to the role, at least I believe. And the problem we still have is this busy culture, this I'm so doing so much stuff, where
yeah.
the notion of something like thinking, which is a really, really important job as a
And
leader,
takes time, by the way.
it's like that. So for me, I think the ultimate flex now is not, I've created 7,000 agents. It's like, you know what? I really needed to think about a difficult problem. So I went for a walk around Centennial Park for an hour and really thought about,
Yeah,
what am I going to do with this leader? Am I going to promote them? Am I going to do something different? Like, that's the ultimate flex for me, is because you've created the space to think clearly. and make very difficult decisions. Not that you're
Yeah.
like so activity based, which
I
again is
think
so
that
counterintuitive.
it is that study that you referenced from Burning Glass Institute, which I think is just it's really important. It underpins for me, like as we were starting to think, and I think as companies start to think about AI reorganization, redesigning their work and their workforces around this technology. I think, one of the ways, this is pretty simplistic, but I think about the outcomes. Like, what are we doing this for? Again, clarify intent, right? You hear me say that a lot. I think it is really, really important.
Right on, yeah,
Um,
absolutely. Yeah.
and I think it's important in like many situations, but clarifying intent is important to say, what are the outcomes that we're hoping to achieve with this technology and as a company? And then what are the tasks that we need to achieve this outcome as a company with this technology? And of those tasks that we need, which are like we need a human to do and which do we need an agent to do or, whatever, and or automation to do, and then how do we design from there? This concept of like I'm a marketing manager it's a fairly like recent construct, right? A marketing manager as a role is really just a series of tasks that we like lump together into a role, a job category, because we didn't want to say, oh, we need like a, copy checker and a this, right? We just like squished it all together and said marketing manager. Well, now AI is saying like, oh, actually, I'll take that one and that one and that one. And so now marketing manager means these things without those three tasks. And I think like we have to figure out as a global economy, do we care? Do we care that a marketing manager now has three less tasks? Are we going to pay them less for that? I don't know. There's so many questions still to be
Yeah, yeah,
answered.
you're right. And half of that is the fun of figuring them out, And so for you then, as you do look forward, right? Like you're in a great new interesting role. You started your own business now. You're out there like helping people go through this, which again, I just think is fantastic. Anybody listening, like if you need help in this area of getting business problems and solving them with people, like, Mel is the person to call. So tell us a little bit about what you're looking forward to and, what even inspired you at this moment to sort of take the steps you're taking to help
Yeah.
people.
I actually did look to my past history to decide to make this future leap. I was working through the internet boom and bust, and I felt like I was able to get a really good base of information from which to help companies for the future because I was working with so many companies at one time. And I love being a chief people officer. I really do love the work of solving business problems through people. I think because of all of the things that we've talked about, I'm still fascinated by humans. I still believe humans want to do a good job at work. I am still fascinated by the business problems that we have to solve, even more so today. I just felt like I was going to be able to get better breadth of information to help companies more if I could be solving these problems for lots of companies at one time versus, sequentially one company at a time. So it's been so fascinating talking to, because of my background, I get to talk to tech companies. I get to talk to restaurant companies. I get to talk to retailers. I get to talk to, legacy consumer companies and industrial companies. And they're all coming and they're like, we still have lots of problems to figure out through people. And so it's been really, really fun.
Yeah, well, look, I just want to say thank you very much for coming on the show and sharing so many of your own lessons learned with people. They're massively invaluable. I couldn't agree more. This is probably one of the great redesigns of sort of humans in a way about how we work, how we're going to get work done. So maybe there is no better time to be doing the work you're doing probably than this moment. thank you very much again for sharing everything. And I'm actually want to get you back on the show maybe in a couple of months' time to see what are more things that you've learned.
I
Through
would
working
love
with all
it.
these different businesses.
I would love it. Thank you so much for having me. The book is amazing. If you haven't read it, grab it. It is, it's an easy but like really, really practical read, and I loved it. So thanks for giving me an advance copy, Barry.
You're welcome. Thank you very much for sharing.
Thanks so much for listening. If you found this episode useful, make sure you subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or your favorite podcast app. Please consider leaving a rating or a review as it helps others find our podcast. For more episode and details about the show, visit barryoreilly.com, and we'll see you on the next episode.